Hello, welcome to Goodwood. This is the stable yard. It's genuinely where all the horses come when they do that running round up at the top of the hill. And, cheesy line, here's some horsepower. Yes, quite a lot of it. At the end of this week, Simon and myself will be running through what we have decided are Goodwood's cars of the year for 2023. And we've brought together 9 cars that we think represent the best cars from their particular category. And right now, we're going to take you through why we've chosen each of those cars. And we're just going to talk through the ones that we're actually going to drive. And I'm the lucky one because I get to drive 5 of those 9, starting with this rather massive 5.5 metres of Bentley Flying Spur, but this is not any Bentley Flying Spur. This is the Bentley Flying Spur Edition 12. And what does Edition 12 mean? That means it's the last one ever to have a W12 engine.
Gosh, so this is saying goodbye to the W12 engine.
Yes.
20 years of W12.
Surprisingly short history, actually.
Yeah.
It's only been around for that long. It's a Volkswagen-made engine under the bonnet. You can get the Flying Spur with a V8, but this is how traditionally had the W12 for a long time. It's in speed spec, which means that it doesn't actually get much more power than the standard car, but it's got some pretty trick traction control and some much more, well, slightly more sporty suspension to give it a little bit more fun. Power, over 600 horsepower. Torque, the important one. This has 900 Newton meters of torque. 900 Newton meters. That's insane. And that means the fact that it's slightly larger than the Mare Celeste doesn't matter because it'll do 0 to 60 in just over 3.5 seconds. So what colour would you call this?
It's kind of, well, it depends which angle you look at it, isn't it? Sometimes it's duck egg blue, other times it's kind of shade green, other times it's just flat grey, but it depends what car's next to it. If you've got a blue car next to it, like this Honda Civic Type R, then, you know, it might look a bit bluer. But this is the all-new Civic Type R. It's been matured, it's a bit less obnoxious. It's got tweaks to the chassis, the steering, the gearbox, the engine. Everything's pretty much brand new. It's been honed to turn it into the best Type R that we've ever seen. And having driven it, I kind of agree with that assessment. This thing is stunning to drive.
Yeah, I spent a little bit of time in this car last year as well. I think my favourite thing about this car is the thing that's most controversial about it, and it's this rear wing, which is much toned down from the old one, but actually produces real downforce now. That is an actual working thing that'll help you out rather than just an overly obnoxious appendage.
That is the thing with this car. It's still engineered to a purpose. Taking it on a track is what this is all about. It's got the track mode, the R+ mode, which tightens everything up. You get this wonderful feel from the steering. It's got 330 horsepower, loads of torque. You feel that kick when you put your foot down. This is not just a hot hatch, this is a proper track hatch, and possibly the best hot hatch there has ever been.
So why have we picked this car?
Because I like it. It's also maintaining the hot hatch legend. It almost feels like we're losing that element of the car market, but cars like this, if they continue to deliver on the quality that we've got here, there might be a future for it. A future that might arrive with EVs?
Well, yes, if that's our favourite hot hatch of the year, then this is... Ooh, is this the next generation? Is it what? This is the MG4 Xpower, in case you didn't know. It is an MG4, which is just an electric family saloon. It's really good, actually, the standard one. But this one has 2 motors now. So not just one in the rear, but they fitted an extra one to the front, which means it's got an awful lot of horsepower. And it'll do 0 to 62 again in about 3.5 seconds. Very much like that, and quite a lot faster than the... How much was the Honda?
It's about 4.5, I think,
about 4.5.
to 62.
Full second faster for this, which, if you look at it, like, what about it tells you that's the Xpower?
It's a heck of a lump, isn't it? It's kind of... Is it too big? It's smaller than the Civic in terms of wheel span, but it's feels quite lardy, doesn't it?
But with that amount of horsepower and that ability to hit 62 miles an hour in 3.5 seconds, is that the future? So we've got 2 EVs here. They're quite different. We've not just picked our best EV of the year. This one is sort of where we're going for the future, and certainly where MG comes back in, and the Ioniq 5 over, and the Ioniq 6 over there will come to in a little bit. And now, this is my corner.
Whoa.
This is where I get really excited.
This is where I get very jealous.
All of the fun. Where should we start? Left or right?
Let's start with the BMW.
The BMW, yes. This one is the one that has my heart. If I were to choose any of the cars here to drive home in, I'd probably take this one. It's a family estate car. It's humongous. It's got 510 litres of boot space. This thing, I think, is one of the best driving cars around. It's got, what, 510 horsepower, 620 newton meters of torque. It's just an absolute beast. And then later on, you have a son.
Well, I have to say, of all these cars that we've got in this week, this is the one which I was able to do the nursery run in, which makes it by far the best car here, because all these other ones, to be fair to them, are completely useless for me, which is kind of a shame. But this was really a big moment, wasn't it? When it arrived at the Festival of Speed last year, and we kind of saw that initial launch, and what an exciting thing to finally have an estate version of the best performance car arguably there's ever been in the M3.
Well, we've been waiting for an M3 Touring since they teased us with what, the E46? They made a one-off prototype concept and were like, oh, look, we might make an M3 Touring one day, and did they?
No.
No, they bloody didn't. But now they have, and it's here, and somehow, I won't reveal everything, but somehow, that's better than an M3, a standard one. And speaking of better than the standard, what? Now, first impressions when you see the 911 GT3 RS.
It's got a great big wing. It's got DRS, for goodness sake. Like, what possessed them to think that this was necessary, first of all? The Porsche's fast enough already, right?
No, I've stood next to an RSR from the now much missed GTE car, and the wing is not that big.
It's quite big.
It's not as big as this one.
Yeah.
This is massive. I don't think I've seen a road car from a manufacturer with quite such extreme over aerodynamics.
It is obnoxious, isn't it? In a good way.
But it works.
This is the thing, isn't it? Going back to the kind of things built for performance, this thing is 100% performance, right? All the little holes, all the louvres, all the flaps, they're all doing something, right, when it's on the move.
It produces 860 kilograms of downforce, admittedly at 177 miles an hour, but it will still be producing 400 at about 110. And if you are on track like we will be, it's not just that DRS at the back there that flips away, and it's not, because the downforce isn't just being created by these obvious plastic bits you can see all over the place. Actually, it's got great big aerodynamic louvres underneath the body that play with the air as it goes under and through the car, and those will move out of the way if you're in low downforce mode or if you're using the DRS. So it is real clever stuff, the kind of things that even racing cars don't have.
So are you telling me that this is in fact a ground effect car?
No, not quite, but it does have an awful lot of aerodynamics. And actually another thing, so what are sort of some of these cars? What's the thing they have? Is it practicality?
They do have rear seats, don't they?
Massive thing, massive boot, massive boot. No, never mind the rear seats. When you drive a Porsche, what do they normally have to put your luggage in?
A frunk.
A frunk. No.
Oh.
No, you see, because of those aerodynamic aids, the radiator is actually here, right up the top. They've had to move it up. Interestingly also, this car is only ever so slightly more powerful, about 15 horsepower than the GT3. So it's ever so slightly faster to 60 miles an hour. It's heavier than the GT3.
What's the point then?
Well, because of all those hydraulics they've had to put in for the aerodynamics to move, it's got heavier. So they've had to replace a load of bits with plastic, loads of bits with carbon, and magnesium, or it would be,
gosh,
well, it would be huge. And I'm not going to give anything away here by saying it's pretty good. But enough from me. Speaking of 911s, what's this?
It's pretty good, but this is better in practically every way. Let me tell you why. It's cooler. It's the 911 Dakar, which means it's a Porsche 911 built to go rallying, right? It's been, I think, 40 years since Porsche first won the Dakar with the 953, and they've paid homage with this. They've raised it up by 50 mils. There's an active lift system, which raises up by an extra 30 mils if you're really getting tough with it. It's a real 911, which means it's got an actual real Porsche badge instead of that cut price sticker stuck on the front of that.
That's heavy, that.
You say so. This is carbon fibre. The rear seats are also taken out of here. There's a roll cage in there. It weighs 10 kilos less than the standard GTS that this is based off of. Sit inside it, it's practically a 911. Is that a disappointment? I maybe might have liked it to be a little bit more bespoke considering the rest of this car, but what you do get is cool off-road craziness, but also the standard Porsche 911 performance that everybody loves, right? If you drive a Porsche 911, you drive it because it's good to drive, because it's well made, because it's arguably the most famous, most successful sports car in history. This is a worthy 911, and I think it's the best 911 of 2023.
Yes.
It is an all-rounder, a jack of all trades, and a master of all trades. It still performs just as you like it on the road. It doesn't feel big and lumbering. It doesn't feel soft. The suspension moves, but it doesn't ruin the ride. It keeps it feeling sporty. And I think the fact that they've managed to achieve that by turning it into this cool thing, just look at it. Look how cool it is. It's big and bulgy. The tyres are ridiculous. It's still dirty, even though we've cleaned it. It just loves to be a filthy off-road machine. And yet you could still drive it and think you were driving a normal GTS. It's just magnificent.
What's this?
Oh, see, I've said I like this the most. This is very close second.
Are you okay?
I have spent too much time with this car. That is true. The Hyundai Ioniq 6, again, just look at it. Have you ever seen anything, well, you have seen something like it before, but in the last 5, 10, 20 years, has anybody produced something that looks like this streamlined, kind of efficient shape? They've done it on purpose. This is obviously an EV. It's Hyundai's latest EV on their line of what's going to be 4 or 5 EVs by the end of 2026. And they've made it streamlined on purpose. They're saving range. Every time this car travels through the air, it's saving itself mileage because it's cutting through better. It's got a drag coefficient of 0.21, which is better than any EV on the road today.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're moving the goalposts. They're turning the EV market into something that is more credible. It's better than anything else that you can currently buy in terms of the look of it, the style of it, the performance of it. It's heavy because it's an EV. It's got that huge battery underneath, but it still drives so wonderfully. You get this lovely feel from the ride. The steering is pinpoint. I don't know what they've done to engineer that, but it feels fantastic. It's comfortable, it's roomy. The legroom in here is stupid. I've got my kid's seat in there. Son climbs out the car seat and he's just crawling around on the floor having a great time. It's basically a playroom. Honestly, I can't fault this thing. The infotainment is smooth, it actually works. It's got a funny little gear shift thing. Instead of like having just a switch on here, it's on the stalk. It's just funky and it's cool and I like it. I'm not sure about these. These are a bit odd, but overall, I like what they're trying to achieve here, and I think for 90% of the time they have actually struck gold.
I really like I love the light bars on the back. This one, we were in California recently and saw loads of these on the road, and at night, just that, it looks like something out of a sci-fi film.
It's a spaceship, isn't it?
With this one up here as well, yes.
This is the thing with Hyundai, is that, you know, you may have seen the Ioniq 5. There's no real family connection to these. They're all very different, and what Hyundai is trying to do is kind of go away from the, you know, you could look at Porsche and say, oh, they all look the same. You're not going to get that with Hyundai now. Everything's different. They've all got their own ID. The lights, like you say, are all very unique. And it's just refreshing for me. It's refreshing to have something like this on the road that you can actually buy.
You know what, I don't like cameras on mirrors, but I do like these because they look like a toy that you bought in the 1990s that was see-through. What, you know, one of those original iMacs.
This is quite a thing, by the way.
Yeah.
I've spent a fair bit of time in it this week, and I'm still not convinced I understand how to drive it.
Okay.
It's got 630 horsepower. Yep. Lots of torque, not an awful lot of traction. But aside from that, this is the Maserati MC20 Cielo. It's the open roof version of the MC20, and it's got the same V6 engine. It sounds marvelous. It's Italian, it's red. It's a proper old-fashioned sports car. There are no gizmos with this. It's not hybrid. It's just a straight petrol engine, steering wheel in there, 4 wheels, stick it on the road. Doesn't it look fabulous?
It's silly, and that's perfect. And that's the best looking car here.
I totally agree.
By
totally
far.
agree. Yeah, from
And
all angles.
It does some of the proper things, like the doors open
Oh, yes.
Like that. For absolutely no reason.
Carbon fibre tub, super lightweight. This thing is so cool in so many ways. Tick a box for any supercar you could ever hope to build. This pretty much ticks all of those boxes. There's nothing missing from this. I think actually it's better in Cielo form. I think, you know, for whatever rigidity you might lose in terms of handling, to have the option of taking this off and listening to this in your ear, especially with the turbo whine, which is fabulous. This is the ultimate experience car. It might not be the best in terms of driving. It might not have quite the dynamics of a GT3 RS or an Artura or even the M3 Touring perhaps, but to look at, to sit in, to drive, for people to gawp at you as you go past and say, oh, wow, this is the one. This is the one you're putting on your bedroom wall.
It's all about the looks for me.
Yeah.
All about the looks. And the way they have actually managed to make it still look like a coupe from the side with these buttresses.
Clever, isn't it?
But some of you may have noticed in the background as we walked around that there isn't one supercar here. And we said we would have one car to match sort of every single segment. So why have we got two supercars here? Quite simple, let me fill you in. This has a V6. This also has a V6. But if I come over here and it's November and my hands are cold and I want to warm them up, I can put them here where the batteries from its plug-in hybrid system are venting all of the heat that they've created. So this, the McLaren Artura, is a plug-in hybrid supercar. Now, plug-in hybrid makes it sound like, I don't know, we should also have an Astra here. But this plug-in hybrid system, yes, it will do some miles an hour for some distance, who cares, on electric-only range. But that's not what it's about. It is about making sure that this car, with its smaller V6 engine, has the best performance, the best throttle response of any McLaren that I've ever driven. I have to admit, I've not driven any of the real hypercars, but I think this is the best supercar that McLaren has ever made. And this, if that's the supercar that we know, then this is the beginning of the supercar of the future.
It is very clever, isn't it? Because it's not just about hybrid power being efficient, it's also helping the performance, right? So it uses the electric power to fill in the gaps in the torque delivery. When you put your foot down, instead of getting all that turbo lag, it's straight in, punches you right in the back, and you get that performance, which, like you say, the engine is smaller, but is it quicker than the Maserati, or?
Well, it's 610 horsepower combined, 720 Newton meters of torque. And one of the interesting things about this Artura is that it sort of doesn't fit anywhere. It's not as big as a Ferrari 296. It's not as small as a McLaren 570S. It is just, it's a bit of supercar that they've made to fill two gaps. But there's a few more things. It's got revised steering and suspension, which means it's tighter and sharper as it goes into a corner. And it's that electronic differential, which has, I believe, now made it onto the 750S as well, is almost as big a change. Because this thing, especially in the wet, this thing is just planted. If that is the best car here for being silly, and that is the best car here for just spending your time on track, fine-tuning everything about your performance, this is the best car for just jumping in and going fast.
Agreed. And it is, like you say, it's kind of an experiment, isn't it? It's almost like a concept car, because like you say, the tech that's built in this and tested in this is being put onto their supercars of the future, like the 750S, whatever comes next, whether it's hybrid or electric. This is really where that's all going to start from, and that makes this quite an important car.
Yeah. So what have we got here? We've got an Italian supercar. We've got a British plug-in hybrid supercar. We've got an EV. We've got something Porsche made because they'd been drinking far too much Jägermeister. We've got something they made after they woke up the next day and sobered up far too quickly. We've got BMW finally having the day off that it promised it would for years and years. We've got something from MG that shows that MG might actually be back and incredibly interesting again. Honda still makes great Type Rs and a little bit of British luxury at the end. And these will be, if you tune in, hopefully later this week, or who knows, earlier, to our cars of the year. These will be the cars that we are driving both on the track and the roads around Goodwood here. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm very excited. It's been a fabulous week. We've learned a lot about these cars as well, I think. This is not just kind of bringing these cars in and saying, oh, these are good. We've grown with these cars and I think grown as people as well.
Well, that was disgusting. But please do tune in, and we hope you enjoy. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll cut that last bit out.